Hello, I'm here today with Adam Piandes, and we're going to talk about two things affecting the Hex and the Pulse Chain communities as they continue to grow. All right. Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Good, brother. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. Thanks so much for your time. So I know we've been talking about doing this for a little bit, and I think the timing is a little interesting, especially in the community. But before we get into that, take a couple minutes to just tell us a little bit about your background, professionally, you're getting into Hex, etc. Just to start it off.
Yeah, cool. So psyched to be here. I will, Krypto Panda, been following you for many years. So glad to be here. So I predominantly do leadership development work within organizations for individuals. My company has programs that run across the globe. We've supported individuals in close to 100 countries on developing their sense of leadership from within themselves, and then how to step out into the world and be an influential figure is our focus. I work individually as a coach, predominantly with senior level executives, CEOs, CTOs, so on and so forth. I've been teaching, coaching in some capacity for about 25 years, and it's looked different along the way. However, the common thread has been coaching, teaching, facilitating. And I got into, my story is pretty similar to a lot of the folks in the Hex community. I got into crypto 2017, got wrecked, sat on it for a while, followed Richard Hart for a number of years, and got into Hex, enthusiastically, pre-Big Pay Day. So I've been in it for a while and been a part of the community, just watching and really excited to participate here today.
Very cool. And so, yeah, I'm guessing from your experience in your profession, you probably have some thoughts and ideas about Richard Hart as a leader, and this sort of the icon that he is in the Hex community. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I love the guy. I just think he's fantastic. The way he shows up, and why the reasons why I admire him and believe that he is an effective leader is because he wears his heart on his sleeve in many respects, and so there's this level of authenticity that you can feel from him. He's also aware that in certain moments he has to be a little particular about what he shares and what he says. But there's what you're going to get from him is raw, and what you're going to get from him is real. And when I think of what a good leader is, it's somebody who lifts other people up. It's somebody who believes that other people have the answers inside of them. And so in listening to his streams over and over again, that message to me has landed on me and is abundantly clear that he will share something with you and say, look, the choice is up to you. You make that decision in terms of how you want to move forward. And everything that he promotes within Hex is, supports that level of autonomy, which is that the community is full of smart people. You're able to make your own choices. And in doing so, trust your gut and be smart about it. And so he's influential in a couple of different ways, just through his behavior and through his I think ability to inspire people to take action.
Great point. Yeah, and I think what I find interesting, because I share the same. I love the dude. I also think that there's some level of attention that you have to pay to see some of those things, because at the outset, some of it's not apparent,
No.
and on the surface, you look at certain things, you look at the watches, you look at some of the things, and even people that I've talked to that are, you know, that I've onboarded that will start to watch the videos and they're like, what's up with the watches? And I'm like, you actually need to pay attention. You actually need to see what's going on there. And then it becomes undeniable. But I love what you're saying, like that authenticity, regardless of, you know, regardless of the content and the stuff that's coming out of his mouth that might be considered what might turn some people off. There's a thread of caring. And
oh yeah, he's a polarizing dude. There's no doubt about it. You know, in my onboarding process of bringing people in, you know, I've shared clips of Richard where one person has been like, wow, that dude's awesome. And the other person has been like, why the hell are you showing me this guy? You know what I mean? And it's rare that there's something in between. And so again, I think his message is really about uplifting and empowering others. And, you know, if you can see beyond, you know, everything he does is strategic, right? And so the watches and so on and so forth is part of appealing to wider audiences, bringing more people in that perhaps never would have heard of Hex. But once you get beyond that and get into the meat, I really believe, and I think part of it is intuitive from people who receive his message. Like, do you really believe that this guy is trying to uplift the community? Is it authentic? Is it real? And my experience has been that it very much is.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned you've been following him for years prior, so you had that context. I, on the other hand, did not. And you see the short attention span that there is in crypto, where like if you once you start paying attention, you look and you see the types of videos that he was making before Hex even came up. What he like clearly is trying to help people. Like,
yeah,
clearly, like there's no doubt about it. But in crypto, people have shut, you know, it's like when moon, I want this now. So a lot of people are not going to take the time to go look at literally a catalog of someone like doing the best they can to try to improve the lives of others. And yet the benefit there is folks like yourself and other people in the community that were following him before actually had that. I mean, there's no trust in crypto, and yet there's a large number of people that trusted him to even, you know, go on this adventure. Now, and I know you said you were around like right before Big Payday. In terms of leadership, like, and we'll get to some certain things, like some recent happenings, you know, in the community with some as prices gone sideways or down. But what elements or aspects or strengths in leadership can get someone from a launch to all of the hate, all of the gatekeeping, all of just the muck that everyone went through, and get everyone, you know, have everyone gel? Like, what is it? What is it? What are those ingredients that makes someone able to pull people together for 600 plus days?
Yeah, and not an easy road that Hex has traveled, right? And the one that you just described. I mean, I think about, you know, one of Richard's early Hex videos when he was getting bombarded by a group of Tonvei's lawyers. I don't know if you've watched that video, right? It went on for like 7 hours, and the dude hadn't slept. Richard Hart, you know, he'd been up, you know, like mixing the batch or whatever he's doing.
He's launching.
Yeah. And he stood his ground. You know, he stood his ground. And, you know, a lot of people hate grows when people within themselves are not secure enough to see another person succeed, and when it goes against the grain. And so I watched that, and I felt the hatred and the energy that was coming from those other folks, and he just stood his ground. And for me, when I saw that, there was an element of confidence in Richard that I believe just started to permeate and extend outward from showing up in scenarios such as that one. And so what's going to happen in that instance? Well, it's a very polarizing video. Richard is polarizing, but being in his realness is what's going to bring in people that start to gravitate towards that energy. right? It's going to start to bring in people who like to go against the grain a little bit, and are not afraid to push the envelope, are not afraid to step in and just go all in, you know. And so I work with a lot of founders and CEOs, and a lot of people come to me with ideas. And my first question that I'll always ask them is, are you 100% in on your idea? Like, are you 100% in? Because if you're 95% in, fuck it, go do something else.
Yeah. People are going to smell it on you.
They can smell it on you. And so when you have that 100% and you're all in, that energy brings people in, you know, and in doing so, again, there's that element of authenticity. There's that element of being vulnerable in that process. And whether or not people are aware of it or not, people gravitate towards that. Right. And that vulnerability allows people to get to know him on a more personal level. Richard's insecurities are there. Like, you can see them, but that's what makes him human. And that's why I love the way that he shows up, because we can all relate to those through our own insecurities as well. And so I think it's that vulnerability piece. It's the authenticity that starts to create that knowing and that connection amongst the community.
That's great insight. And you know, it's funny, there's something to be said for watching someone talk to someone else and you want to slap your screen.
Yeah.
Like with those lawyers, and he just sat there calm, you know, like calm. And I guess for better or worse, we don't have to watch many of those. I mean, they're around if you want to revisit them. But that was the thing for me, is I was like, how is he doing this? You know, I wasn't around in real time, but watching it later on, because people, it's kind of like the Richard Hart greatest savage moments or greatest hits. Like, people will post it again and again. And I think it sounds like what you're saying is like the conviction to your idea and being 100% is what you're tapping into.
Yeah.
And there's obviously got to be more, you know, because there's belief in something, but then there's others seeing your belief in that and believing themselves.
Yeah, there's you know, I think that there's a powerful piece in there that perhaps isn't often talked about, and it's the element of neutrality, the emotional neutrality that Richard Hart shows up with when he's faced with haters, right? And is able to you know, he may go up and down a little bit, but he's maintained. If you're talking about 1 to 10, when we're talking about the emotional scale, right, where you're you know, there's extremes on both end, he tends to hover in that 5 range, you know, and that's where that element of neutrality, when you're getting attacked by people, fight or flight responses tend to go off, right? Anger comes to the surface, for, you know, whatever it is. And if you're able to, within yourself, feel that anger come up, recognize that it's there, and yet maintain that position of neutrality, that is such a powerful skill that people, you know, you watch him in those instances, you're like, holy shit, man. Like I might, like you said, want to start swinging through my screen, but he's able to hold that line. And
yeah. And to be able to, like you said, to be able to do that when you're so passionate about your idea. I mean, that must be, just as a founder myself, like you know, you grow with the company a little bit and you've been around and you're doing things and you get a little bit more chill. Like, it's not that the passion goes away, but you've had the late nights and the losing sleep and waking up and turning the light on and jotting down ideas. But I've, you know, in the time I've been doing this, I've never been attacked in the way that like people straight up calling me a scammer.
I mean,
you know,
that digs into the core of who you are as a human being, right? And the defense mechanisms. Anytime someone points at you and calls you something, the natural response is to defend.
Yeah, of course, makes sense. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. So there's Hex, and then, you know, and then then he announces that he's launching PulseChain, and so there's this belief system and an idea. You know, in this invention in Hex's product that everyone, that we're now all on board with. And and that is Hex is the best product in the world. There's nothing else like it, and it's clear that HEXICANS are on board with that. And then you look at this launch of PulseChain, where it's like, oh, well, now we're going to have to start winning the hearts and minds of other people who are in projects and in communities that aren't Hex. Did you observe anything in terms of him as a leader? Have you seen an evolution from where it is that you stand in terms of your expertise and your experience?
As a publicly facing figure, just how he presents himself.
Yeah, or like a bridge builder. Because I mean, to be honest, that was one of the things I told a friend, like, okay, he's forking Ethereum, and he's like, he's gonna have to get, this is, by the way, before we knew that everyone's getting that he was copying the entire system state. Most genius idea ever.
Can't wait.
Like, he doesn't seem like seriously. My friend's like, he doesn't seem like a bridge builder. How is he going to talk developers into building on top of PulseChain? But the just giving a copy of the system state, as genius as it is, that's not it. That's not a guaranteed success. It helps with adoption. But I'm curious in terms of, like, I just can't imagine, you probably do your best but I can't imagine that you ever step out of your experience to be like, I don't want to say psychoanalyzing, but analyzing him as a leader. And we'll get into this in a second, but HEXICANS in terms of leaders and just people in the Hexican community, and how it is that they're out, talking about the product and things like that. And now, going into PulseChain. But was there anything that stuck out for you, or is sticking out for you as the vision has evolved?
Yeah. I at first, one of the things that stood out for me, and I'm curious your response to this, is he made it abundantly clear from the onset that there is no favoritism in this, as we expand into Pulse, right? The Hexican, you're a Hexican, you will remain a Hexican. And this is another project here called Pulse that they're going to work together. However, just because you got in early and you are a, self-proclaimed Hexican and part of this community, we're not going to exercise any sort of favoritism, right? We want to continue to utilize the same skills that were used before to expand the community outward. And so it was a real teaching moment from the onset, because again, what ends up happening is people like to be first, right? Mm-hmm. I'm proud that I get in before big payday. Like, I feel really good about it. And I also realize that my personal success is going to be dependent on the community success. And I think he set the tone from the onset by saying, we're not playing favorites here. And we're just going to continue to open up and expand. And it seemed like people adopted that message out of the gates because they trust the guy.
Yeah, he was not wishy-washy about it at all. Like, he was definitely I saw him more active in Telegram. Like, there was this expectation from people, like, well, we're not getting anything. He's like, and he literally, here's what I love about the way he talked about it. He was so absolute. He's like, you're getting a copy, you're getting a heads up. What else do you need? And it's like, and at the time, he knew what that meant, but reading it, you're like, okay. But then now you realize, you see all these people like, man, I missed the sacrifice. Like, there's people that feel like they miss out, and you realize that what he was saying was true. As a gift. I've given you enough.
Yeah. And oftentimes people will take on these belief systems that support kind of the elements of greed a little bit, and you may not even be aware of it. I was in early, therefore I deserve X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. And if he did not, if he was not really clear in conveying that message from the onset, the community may have dismantled a little bit. I mean, who knows, right? Who knows? But there is that. There is the element there where, the word of Richard Hart is the word, right, within the community.
It's his thing,
and it's a powerful thing, and it's a beautiful thing when the community responds to the idea of expansion.
Yeah, and to your point, there's some of those things are bound to happen as the community grows anyway. But had he wavered a little bit, then maybe it would have started earlier. In terms of any sort of, I don't want to say division, but there's always potential for that in growing communities, wherever they are, whether it's crypto or otherwise.
Yeah, and he is that strong alpha male as well too, and so he's just like, I've given you enough, move on. You're like, oh, all right, cool. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
there was none of that.
No, there's none of that. There's no wavering. And that energy, again, it's that fierce energy that people respond to. And it's the emotions, he stays at that 5, right? He's not very emotional. And I do think that is, he cares, there's passion, and he, can go up and down a little bit, but generally he's in that middle, and that with that fierceness, and people respond to that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I did a video last week talking about story arcs, and and the documentary crew is shooting right now, and how if the highest of stakes is just Richard Hart gets an idea, there's a little bit of gatekeeping, and then world domination, like it's a totally boring story. Like there has to be some sort of twist. And one of the things that I noted, I don't know, I've never been a part of producing a TV show or a film, but in terms of studying writing for television and movies, like my bet is that the people that are producing and directing are trying to find the vulnerabilities. And I don't mean weakness, but like trying to find the human side's there. You can see when he's talking to people, but they need a plot twist right now. And it's not just price went sideways for 2 months or whatever. Like there has to be there has to be worry, concern, drama to make this a good story, even though it's a documentary.
Conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Well, actually, I want to talk about conflict because you are, expert in communications and specifically, well, I'll let you talk about that in a second, but do you have anything else on the leadership side before we move to conflict? Because it's probably perfectly timed to.
Well, conflict is perhaps the biggest component of leadership, right? And how we as individuals deal with it. So I think it's a good transition. We're still in the framework here of leadership, right? We're just getting into the good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So so there has been some conflict, in our community, as well as, in fact, there was, crypto moves so fast, like 2 weeks feels like 7 months or whatever. But we literally went from like some people sort of infighting to Nomics doing whatever. And then everyone's like, oh, now we have this thing outside ourselves to be mad at, or be frustrated with. Keeping in mind that some people are saying, market cap doesn't matter, and then getting upset about that, which is its own thing, whatever, no judgments about it, but it's just an observation. Like market cap doesn't matter except when they drop ours, and then
Market doesn't matter, but fuck you.
yeah, exactly. But now we've seen a couple of other instances of conflict. I don't really know where to start the question there, but have you, rather than commenting specifically on events, is there a way that you can speak about this generally? Like I know from, because we've known each other for a while, but I know that you've helped companies like get through some serious shit where things were crumbling in terms of relationships. Maybe talk about that a little bit, and then any observations that you have of what you've seen recently might be a good next step.
Yeah, cool. Good. Yeah. So conflict is what all of this is about, right? The storyline of Hex, the play that we're all in, and we're all kind of moving about it in our own ways, and amidst the community itself. Conflict's at the heart of it. And so anytime that I talk about conflict, whether it be with an individual or an organization, or if I'm giving a talk, I always start by saying conflict exists on 2 levels. It's the conflict that exists within you, and then it's the conflict that exists outside of you. And so in order to effectively deal with nomics changing the way that they rank, or someone saying something on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I mean, I just don't know how to use it yet. And I've been trying. I will figure that out. It's only been around for what, 15 years? Or whatever is happening in your external world, right? The only way that you can effectively deal with it from a leadership position is to deal with the conflict that exists within you. And so any time that something happens in the external world and you have an emotional response to it, it's you know, it's very easy. And what I've observed in Twitter is that people are constantly just pointing their fingers at other people and yelling and screaming and blaming. But ultimately what it's doing is it's stirring up emotional unrest from within the individual that is unresolved, right? Anytime you get emotional, you have an emotional response. I don't care what's happened in your external world. Those emotions are yours, right? And they're coming to the surface for a reason. Now, when we talk about crypto and you talk about the documentary and the art of telling a story, a lot of this conflict is playful, right? It's WWF wrestling. It's, you know, it has those elements that would make the documentary fun and exciting. And there's also genuine conflict that is unresolved that comes to the surface. People yelling at each other, people blaming each other,
people's relationship to money,
money, power. Now, Hex is not a corporate entity in and of itself, right? Anytime I work in corporations, there's many layers to the organization itself, and there's hierarchy, right? And even when we've shifted more from the old paradigm of leadership, where I'm your boss and I'm yelling at you and telling you what to do, into more of this, what I'll call modern leadership, where there's more collaboration, there's more coaching, there's still hierarchy, right? And so Hex does not look the same on paper because it's a decentralized community. However, there exists these elements of power structures from within, right? There are the folks that refer to themselves as OGs and have built communities through their hard work. And cheers and thank you to all you folks. And then there's others that are coming in, and there's everybody in between. And so what I love about Hex is that the community breathes this element of uplifting one another, and there's power dynamics, right? That this is where conflict comes to the surface. And so we can take this in a number of different ways, and I'm not even sure that I spoke to anything specifically, but conflict, when we look at it, you know, I believe is looked at in two parts. It's how are you dealing with your own emotional responses to your external world? And then how do you step out into the world and help others resolve conflict as well?
Yeah, I like that. And I'm trying
I said
to
a lot, but I'm not even sure exactly what I just said. So
no, you said a lot. I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, like, for those who are watching, for Hexicans that are watching that have seen this, it's clear that there are people that are responding in different ways. People feel maybe a need to take a side on an issue. There's people that are sort of responding with humor. I mean, that's kind of been my thing. It's just sort of how it is that I roll. I'll see something and I'll make a joke about it. And you can see that people respond to the joke part of it because there's a grown ass man that's a cartoon panda that's like tweeting, you know, that's tweeting something, you know, but
levity.
But also, there are so many different types of personalities and so many different histories. And I think that for me, like my experience with it is that, hey, it is life-changing and there's always amazing things about it. But I got wrecked too, and I wasn't going to get back into crypto. And I decided that if I was, it was going to be long-term and it was going to be fun. Yep. And if it wasn't long-term and it wasn't fun, I'm out. I don't care. I didn't care about it. And so there is this interesting part of, like, crypto has some of the best memes ever. And there's amazing meme makers in the Hexican community. And so there's this fun aspect of it. But we're talking about life-changing wealth. We're talking about changing the world. Richard Hart, without cracking a smile, said the goal is world domination. So those are fun memes, and world domination. That's a wide spectrum of
Yeah.
participation, and people fit in all the places in between. I'm just curious, man. I'm curious, like the stuff that you've seen. Like, what's your assessment of it, or what should I don't want. I know you're not going to tell. I know you well enough. You're not going to tell people how to feel or what to do. But sort of, what advice do you have for people as they're watching some of these things, to not be affected by it? Because it's easy when people are fighting to all of a sudden not feel good about the community and not feel good about the product. So
Yeah.
like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would change the wording a little bit, and not to suggest that they don't be affected by it. But if you are feeling affected by something somebody said or something somebody did, and you're having real emotional experiences, well, fucking look at that, right? So if it does come up and you start to get pissed off and angry at other people, well, stop for a second and examine why it is those emotions are coming up. What is unresolved inside of you that you have an opportunity to heal or look at or grow from, right? And so, you know, again, I think the levity piece is really important, right? When there's tension and people are going back and forth, is to bring levity into it. And I think that in many respects can shift the conversation or shift the person's response to go like, what am I doing? Why am I getting so upset about this?
Right.
Right. But as this thing grows, conflict from, you know, when you talk about life-changing wealth, and when you talk about a paradigm shift that happens in your life, conflict will arise. Emotions are going to come up. It's going to be uncomfortable. And whether it's joyous or really challenging, it's important to acknowledge what those are, because as the community continues to grow, it's going to be really important to step out, having your own shit resolved before you go out and step into the world and influence others to take action, right? There's, you know, within organizations, and if we look at the Hex ecosystem as an organization, as a decentralized, I mean, I don't know if those two things go together, a decentralized organization. There's, whenever I go into organizations and talk to teams that are struggling, I share with them, it's really simple, folks. There's two types of conflict: healthy and unhealthy, right? And so the goal is to have healthy conflict, because conflict is inevitable. It's inevitable. And so if people are willing to embrace that conflict's going to show up, well, fuck, let's do it in a healthy manner.
I do. Right? I love that you're saying that, because that's it. Knowing and being accepting of it existing, period, because it's going to happen. It's like pretending that it's not going to happen, and pretending that everyone's going to be aligned. And that's, I mean, what a bigger example can we have than everything going great, and then all of a sudden these people start dumping, and you're like, well, clearly not everyone's a Hexican in the same, you know, as part of it. But I love that acceptance of conflict, but then how you
deal with it. And even when the dump hits, right? I mean, we know this. Let's say, you know, Hex goes up to 40 cents, and then, or where are we now? We're 20 cents, whatever it is. And we were at 25 cents a couple of days ago. Like, even those little dips, and you know they're coming, it stirs up something inside of you when you see that red, right? It stirs up fear. It stirs up insecurity. It stirs up anger. It stirs up frustration. And none of those emotions have anything to do with the fucking red line in the graph. Right, you know, those were already there. Those were already there. So, you know, what ends up happening for people is, when they're not cognizant or aware of that their emotional unrest is theirs, is they take it and they start throwing it out at other people, start projecting it out into the world. And so as the Hex community continues to grow, and the different layers of the Hex community, depending on when you come in, you know, healthy conflict is something that is going to be really, really, really important. And healthy conflict is about trust. If you don't trust the person on the other end, you cannot have healthy conflict. You just can't, because you don't trust them. And the way that we continue to develop trust is by deepening our connections with one another, deepening our connections within ourselves, to continue to establish that baseline of trust. so that when conflict continues to happen, you and I can lean into each other through the conflict because we trust one another, right? And I can say to you, hey, when this happened the other day, or when this happens, I was feeling angry. Like, let's move towards resolution here, versus saying, dude, you're always fucking doing that. And when you do that, like, it's not cool or whatever, right? And then that's a whole different, that's unhealthy conflict, because I'm sitting there and I'm blaming you. And at the end of the day, if we as an entity, as a unit, as a community, can continue to lean into conflict and have it from that healthy perspective, and continue to build trust. And again, trust is built through authenticity. Trust is built through getting to know one another. Where we ultimately end up is in alignment, right? And if we as a community continue to align, now we become exponentially more effective.
I love that. So what do we do? What do we do when the conflict is with someone that we either don't trust or don't have necessarily even a community relationship with, and it's clear that they're, we don't know where they're coming from and they're not looking for alignment?
Yeah. Well, we also have, we also have the authority within ourselves to just disengage, right? I mean,
ghost the mofos.
Exactly. Like, we all have choice, and choice is it's powerful, right? I can choose to not engage with you because either intuitively I don't trust you, or perhaps you've done something that hasn't earned my trust, right? Or when we talk about organizations, the organizations that tend to not do so well, or are constantly dealing with drama, are the institutions and organizations that assume trust is there. So I walk into the room and I join a company, and the people there are, maybe they're similar. We have like maybe similar experiences, or we see the world in similar ways. And so therefore I walk in, it's like, oh, Adam's great, or whatever it is. And then trust is assumed. Oh, okay, we can just move forward now, and when the shit hits the fan, we'll deal with it. Well, that's not how it works. Trust is earned through developing connections and getting to know one another.
Do you think that that's what creates some of the conflict in not just the Hex community, but in crypto communities? I mean, if you were to tell a friend, or I'll just speak for myself, if I were to tell a friend the things that I like about the community, it's like, yeah, we're here for gains, obviously. But then there's these other things that I love about it. I would speak about ethos. I would speak about, doing good and helping each other out, and things like that. And so I literally was like, as you were saying that, I was like, well, that's kind of those are some of the assumptions that I make, even though I've seen examples of it not being the case. I still, I don't know, maybe innocently hope that thread still exists, or at least touches upon some people.
Well, it's heartfelt, right? And so that's the authenticity piece. Is if you were to say to me, and we've had many conversations about the ethos of the community, is, if I just came in, and let me just tell a really quick relevant story that happened yesterday.
Yeah, go ahead.
It speaks to this. I surfed up in Rincon in Santa Barbara, and you must surf there someday. And the guy I went with, I didn't know him that well. He's a friend of a friend. We're just getting to know each other. And so we went out for a burger and a beer after that. And we're sitting there, and he looks at me and he goes, hey man, by any chance, are you into crypto at all? And I immediately went to that place. I was like, oh God, here it comes. Ishibu or whatever. Like, I don't know what he's going to ask me, but it's that first response, right? Like, all right, where's this one going to go? And he looks at me and he goes, have you ever heard of Hex?
Really?
And I was like, this is amazing, and
we can talk.
Yeah, and I got so excited in that moment. I was like, dude, really? Like you've heard about it? Because it is in many respects this wonderful secret at the moment still. I mean, it's growing and it's expanding. But what really resonated for him when he shared that with me was not only my response, but the response of his friend that told him about it. I was like, dude, it's fucking awesome. The community's amazing. Like, people are so into it, and there's such a huge opportunity for you. And here's why I like it. I'm so psyched you asked me. And he was like, man, like the guy that told me that before, he was like, had the same kind of energy about
There's a
it.
thread. Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a thread. There's an energy about it. And that speaks to what you were just talking about, is if it's heartfelt communication, there's an energetic component to it that is unquestionable, right? And so he felt that for me, and now he's getting onboarded and he's in, and he's like, he's like, so when did you get in? I said, well, I got in a little bit before, or I got in about over a year ago, whatever it is. He's like, yeah, my buddy got in like towards the beginning. I think he put in like $1 million. I was like, holy fuck.
Whoa.
I almost shit my pants. I was like, dude, he's doing just fine.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. So it was just an awesome conversation. It got me, I feel like I don't need to get re-energized about Hex that often, but it just, in that moment, it re-energized me for a minute. And it was that, response from me that was just filled with enthusiasm and just super psyched to be part of this ethos, to be part of this community.
Yeah, dude, thanks for sharing that story. That's awesome. And I know that, maybe every crypto community could say this, but like your conversation then wasn't just about the coin. It wasn't about the smart contract. It becomes a whole host of other things. And that's really, it's like I came for the gains and I stayed for the fact that I feel like every week is a master class in crypto.
Yeah.
And finance.
And the interesting thing is about the contract that you just talked about, right? At the end of it, it got to the point where he was so in that I said, let's just get you locked in and then I'll explain it later.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just and that's it's a beautiful thing.
Which is smart too, because there's so many layers.
Yeah.
There's so many layers that skin in the game is where people really start paying attention.
Yeah.
Like
I don't want to confuse things either. It's just like, let's get you in on my enthusiasm alone, and let's bring you in because, again, I go back to conflict. Crypto is one of the most confronting things that there is, right? That you can get involved with because of its volatility, right? So even as I could see him as he was processing this whole idea of getting in and investing, there's conflict that comes with that. Like, there's this crypto thing and like people are talking about it and it makes me uncomfortable because I'm not completely aware of it. And so what we established is trust, right? He got to know me there a little bit deeper. We created a deeper connection because I shared authentically with him. That authentic connection created trust. And therefore he was able in that moment to address his internal conflict, right? And then we got aligned. And then the effectiveness, which is the last piece of it, is like, let's do this. Let's get you in.
That's awesome. I didn't know we were going to get a lesson on onboarding too, because that makes perfect sense. I know you sent the alignment curve. Is this a good time to show that, or should we show it in a second? Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I think sometimes the visual depiction is helpful, and we don't need to do it for too long, but maybe we can just show it.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Let me share my screen. All right. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so this alignment curve, I believe, is supportive of any and all communities when you want to talk about unifying, right, in a way. And what it does is it addresses the different points in the arc that I just described, right? So where we've focused a lot of our attention is right in the middle there, and this is based on overall performance over time. and we talked about trust and conflict, right? So right in the middle there, that conflict exists within us and out in the world, right? So we have to establish trust from within ourselves so that we can step out into the world and be influential in helping others resolve their own conflict, right? Oftentimes we see conflict outside of us and we feel that we have to step out and fix it and solve it. But ultimately that conflict it's not for us to solve. It's for us to help others solve their own conflict. Right. And so yesterday when I had that conversation with him, if you go to the beginning of the graph down at the bottom there, we created that knowing and that connection. We built that trust so that he could resolve the conflict of crypto from within himself. Right. Like, you know, you can lead him to water, but you can't drink it for him. Right. That type of thing. And so once you have that healthy conflict, you can move into alignment and effectiveness. Now, if you have unhealthy conflict, what we were talking about before, if you haven't built trust, if you haven't built, you know, the connection, I referred to those organizations that don't subscribe to this process. They jump right to trust. And then when you have conflict, it's unhealthy because you haven't established knowing and connection. So what do you have to do? Well, now we got to get everybody in a room and have a conversation with one another and spend money and bring people like me in, you know, where we probably could have avoided that in the first place. And now we get to know each other. Now we create that connection to hopefully establish trust. But when trust is ruined, it's really, really difficult to get it back. And so, you know, I think this is a simple graph that for me, it has been supportive for myself and been supportive in growing a business.
Very cool. Thanks for showing that.
Yeah.
Or for sharing that with us.
Yeah, man.
Get this off here. I'm going to stop sharing. All right. So we're at about 47 minutes. Is there anything else that you want to share in terms of like, I mean, I really just want to use this time to, anything else that comes up for you in terms of like what it is that you do and where you see this, because conflict has happened and it's going to happen again. And you see people dealing with it in other ways. And it feels like the natural move is that either people take sides publicly or they say nothing. It's going to happen again. It's going to, the community is growing. There's going to be more stuff. We have HEXICANS that are launching projects or products on PulseChain. And we have people that are, you know, that are open to that. And we have others that are suspicious, that want to verify. And we have others that are just flat out like, I'm here for Hex, and PulseChain is going to make it so that I can do that. What things should we be considering or thinking about as we move forward in terms of like maybe identifying it either in ourselves or with other people or in the community, and how should we move through that?
Yeah, there's this awesome expression that is outer experience is a reflection of inner reality, right? Your outer experience is a reflection of your inner reality, what's happening within you, right? So if you choose to immerse yourself in chaos that's happening outside of you, perhaps there's some chaos that's happening inside of you that's unresolved, right? So again, this comes down to choice. You don't have to engage with everybody. Of course, there's many different people with many different backgrounds that have had many different experiences. And so certain people are going to get lit up by certain things and other people are going to be able to let it brush off their shoulders, right? The one thing is that nothing is personal, right? Even if somebody is attacking you and like all over you, guess what? It's actually not personal. It has nothing to do with you. That's that person's shit. So let them.
That's tough.
Let them make their own bed. It's very difficult. Trust me, dude. If anyone understands that, it's me. Like, do as I say, not as I do. I mean, look, you know, I'm a fiery individual. And so that's something that I've had to really, really, really work on. To be an effective leader is to take emotional responsibility. It's when shit comes up and you insert yourself in something else to fix it. Remember, that person doesn't need any fixing. right? And so none of it's personal, although it can get really harsh and it may seem personal. Having that objective perspective, seeing what's happening around you from just a position of neutrality, like not getting emotionally involved, I think will serve you as an individual and ultimately serves the community as a whole, because sometimes oftentimes the best response is no response. Or just, and I like, like, again, I'm not too deep in the Twitter world, but I've been following, a lot of the characters in the Hex community. And, I know Hexologist, when I see stuff that he posts on Twitter, it's often like, there's levity in it. Right. And so that can, and again, that's not me. I don't follow a lot. I probably should here, but, it's nice to see that, because it's like it can turn playful and what have you. But the big thing is, if you feel yourself starting to get upset, just check yourself, right? Like, before you riggedy wreck.
I like that you're saying that. And by the way, a hexologist is like, I mean, it's perfect that he's called a hexologist, because he's a surgeon in terms of like making it funny, but some of the stuff is really cutting too. It rides a perfect line there.
Yeah.
Well, dude,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's hilarious, and it's been great to have him back, in the community doing his streams again. What my biggest takeaway from this, for me personally, is when I see it happening from now on, I'm gonna just, like, if I'm feeling a certain way about it, just check with myself and be like, why, why am I feeling this particular way? Because it has nothing to do with the stuff that you're witnessing.
No.
It's all about, it's all about
and
you.
When that shit does come up too, the one, like, really important distinction is to, like, look, the Hex community is predominantly men. It's probably 95%, right? And so the tendency in the past is for men to take emotions and just be like, just to shove them, right deep in there.
Tournament baking a heart attack.
Yeah. Bill Burr does an awesome skit on that.
Yeah. Push it down.
Push it down. And so, it's not to shame or whatever, like, when shit comes up, to be like, oh man, I shouldn't have responded that way, but just look at it and be like, oh, why the fuck am I getting all pissed off right now? Like, what's that about? It has nothing to do with somebody's tweet, as much as you want to believe it does.
Right.
And as we continue to grow and more people come in, the community, and again, I'm so grateful for yourself and for all the folks that have put themselves out there to build this community up. The RG3s and the Motley Investors and the Crypto Coffee and all the guys that started the things and all of them, and then the new people that are coming in. It's just it's freaking awesome. It's really cool.
Well, yeah, and thanks for telling me about Hex multiple times, because I clearly needed it a couple of times. Not from any. I didn't do my own research and reading the scam stuff. I just didn't want to hear about crypto. I've talked about this so many times on videos or on stream. Like, I wasn't ready for it. And I think even Funding Jim, I saw him. He's had friends that got mad at him for not telling. He's like, you should have sold it to me harder.
Yeah, he's probably like, what you mean, like the 31st and 32nd time?
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't enough. They're mad at him. Like, if you loved me, you would have pushed me even harder to do it. It's like, come on, man. He's doing the best he can. Well, Adam, thanks so much for your time today, man. This has been awesome. Is there what's the best way to get in touch with you? And what we'll do is, even if whatever you say, if you end up adding anything, I'll just add it to the description later, as you have anything. But what's the best way for people to I'm going to give out your phone number so people can call you whenever they want. But
well, I was going to say Twitter coming and YouTube coming soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got, I'm the stuff I've really contemplated many times if to start like a Hex YouTube channel to talk about this sort of thing. But my energy's been in different areas, and my YouTube channel will be mostly on predominantly on personal development stuff and leadership development stuff. And so we'll be launching that really soon. And I got to get, I got to get that Twitter account going.
Yeah.
So.
It's
I
fine.
don't know.
It'll happen when it happens. And
one
you,
of those-
did you say, when we were talking before, did you say you submitted to, are you thinking about,
Oh yeah.
okay. For the
Yeah,
conference?
no,
It would be awesome to have you speak, man.
yeah, I submitted for the Hex conference to speak, and we'll see what happens. I think part of it is just me getting out here, being more visible in the community itself, and bringing some of the things that I'm passionate about, which is leadership and Hex together. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Right on. Well, Adam, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching. If you like this kind of content, like, subscribe, let us know in the comments. Have great days. Bye all.
Later.